to be honest, just to start out, that's a tough age for one thing. Like it is just a tough age. And so for me, I kind of try to follow their interests a little more. And so it's asking more of the questions. And this is why it can be hard for me. It's often things I'm not really interested in or care about. But I have learned to have this sort of interest, to be at least curious about why they're interested in it. You want to have this bonding relationship that will carry over good feelings into the teenage years. So it's kind of this age that's a little tough. When they're younger, they look up to you and you know everything and you're the best. And then they kind of go to this phase of like, I'm not so sure. And you interrupt my chill time. I don't want to do anything. And you're making me do stuff. And so it's kind of nurturing, like going on a date like that. In some ways it's maybe enough, because you're going on a date, you're having fun, you're creating a positive association with you and him having fun together. So as they continue to grow and mature, they're building on that foundation of having a good relationship with mom. I would say that at this age, that's even more important than the questions you're asking per se. So for my son specifically, I focus on doing things with him that he likes to do. He likes to play games, but a lot of the games he wants to play, I cannot play those games. They literally go on for hours. And I'm like,
he couldn't think of anything more than a game that lasts 17 hours.
Yeah.
Like a board game that's 17 hours is
and I'm like,
heaven on earth.
So I bought a game I like, Moncala, that's short and easy. And, so we play things like that. He likes ping pong. He likes pool. Those are the types of things I'm going to do with him and play with him just to maintain those good feelings in the relationship.
So I will say this, and I think you guys, for all of us, yes, they want good feelings, but please, 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 this is one thing I would plead with you. Become really, really good at asking questions, thoughtful questions, thought-provoking questions, difficult questions, and get tactful enough about it where they think about it, they chew on it, they wrestle with it, and they want to be engaged in a conversation. They don't feel interrogated. They're like, whoa, that's tough. One of my favorite things to start those is to give them a moral dilemma, a story, an example, two characters, a really difficult situation, and say, what do you think about that? What would you do? And why?
Especially if it's connected to something a book they've read or a movie you watched or things like that.
And so, yeah,
directly connected to.
Well, and I'll do that because Rachel and I are constantly reading, right? We're just devouring books all the time. And if you come across a movie or a story or a book, I'm going to share it. I'm going to go into all the kids from any age, you're right, because you said any age here. So we're going to go in from our 7-year-old to our 21-year-old. And I'm going to go in and be like, you guys, I read this last night. Here's this situation.
Or in a movie you watch this,
yep.
Whatever.
Or something that's happening in the world, or a story, hey, I just heard about my cousin. They just went through this terrible thing. And you just ask, like, what do you guys think? What do you do in a situation like that? And you wrestle through it. And you get all kinds of ideas, like, okay, good. Why do you think that? Let's walk through that. What about the opposite? What about this? And get them engaged in this thinking process of and coming up with all these scenarios. So don't be afraid, you guys, to tackle difficult topics with your family. Please, please, please bring up all the polarized topics. Bring up politics, bring up religion, bring up money, bring up sex. Like bring up the difficult things.
Or at the very least, don't be afraid of them coming up.
Yeah.
Because
I'm going to bring them up, because I don't want my my kids, hearing some nutso idea from somebody else, because it would never happen in our home. I'm like, oh, that's going to be talked about. That is going to
Well,
be talked about.
and then
We're going to bring this, sit around the table, and we're going to discuss every idea. We started with our oldest. We're like, okay, abortion. There's a bunch of stuff going on about abortion. Let's talk about it. There's all this stuff. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And we wanted it open and just go around the circles and see like the rotisserie chicken. We want to see every side of an issue. Yeah.
because
And it's amazing to get them engaged in thinking about it.
well, and I think essentially the principle there is to not be afraid to talk about certain things, that you have this openness that, you know, if kids want to ask about this or that or the other, it's okay. It's okay to bring that up. It's okay to have those doubts or concerns or whatever. And so that you maintain this open relationship, and that often comes from realizing your own questions and doubts and concerns, and that you face in a family movie or a book or whatever, and then you bring it up, right? I find that that's the most natural way when you're watching a movie and you're like, oh wow, that, and then instead of just pretending it didn't happen or knowing everyone's uncomfortable, whatever, being like, wow, saying something about it, bringing it up. Whoa, that was really awkward or weird or uncomfortable. Oh, I didn't like that. And you mention it and you talk about it so that it's this culture of openness and, you know, the ability to address difficult things. Now, I feel like that's a really roundabout way about asking good questions, but I think ultimately the way to ask good questions is to just have this culture of questioning, if that makes sense. If you have a culture of questioning, then good questions come up from them, because sometimes the best conversations come when they ask questions. So it's not necessarily me or you asking the question.
Well, but I start because most people won't do it, and most kids won't do it.
But
So here's
they do, and they can.
Well, once you get them going. Again, like you guys, we're working with youth for 25 years, and I'll get these youth that they don't want to talk to anyone about anything, and they're just a hard nut to crack. I always start, even with total strangers. Like, if you could do anything, what would you do? If you could go anywhere, if you could become anything, what would it be? Like, what do you dream about? What do you hope for? What do you long for? What are you afraid of? Just start with questions like that. Those questions will open the floodgates. It's incredible. And then ask more follow-up questions. Like, that's fascinating. Keep going with that. Well, why this? And what if you did this instead? And okay, let's play out this scenario. What if you went here and then you did that and this? Then what? Right? And just you're training them to think. And it is so fun and so engaging to walk down that road. And I did it with my nephew. I was like, well, let's walk through your dream, man. How you plan? Because he just got engaged. And I'm like, so I started asking all kinds of questions. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And he was like, I've never even thought about that. I'm like, well, you got to think about that. And we walked through this whole scenario, and it was cool. By the end of the week, I'd helped him plan out this whole new strategy for life that he hadn't even thought of. And what we did, I was like, hey, map out your dream life for me. What does your dream life look like? But we mapped it out, and I mapped out all the prices. I'm like, okay, you know, that dream life is going to cost you about 250,000 a year. And he was just like, oh. I'm like, what? He's like, well, the career I was thinking about going makes about 110,000 a year. I'm like, okay, there you go. Perfect. You're looking at something that's only half of what you actually want. So you're going to live with this incongruence. It was awesome.
But bringing it back to younger kids and a younger audience, I've often asking those types of questions can be great for them because it's kind of a daydreaming type question. Like, we encourage daydreaming, right? And so if you ask them like, oh, what do you dream about? Or what do you want to do? Or what, those types of things, and let their imagination run, it's very powerful, because I think too often we shut down ideas, which then shut down our kids. But if we allow, like, I'll just do this all the time, even if I think their ideas are completely unrealistic and not going to happen. I never say that. I just let them dream, and I let them, you know, get excited about their things and ask follow-up questions. Oh, really? How are you going to do that? oh, what would that look like? Well, what would you need to do to make that happen? And I allow them to go through that process of, it's a similar thing, but I mean, it can happen at 7 and 9 and 10 and 11. You let them daydream and you kind of facilitate that daydreaming by, just getting involved with them a bit.